A little over a month ago, the CEO of Duolingo sent out what he felt was a very smart internal email about being AI first. And the backlash that followed was something that none of us could have predicted. And I think it really marked a moment where the public conversation around AI really fundamentally shifted. And so in today's episode, I want to go through the email and extract it for insights that can teach us something, what we can learn, what we can foresee based on some of the events that have unfolded. Welcome to an episode of the Habit Chess podcast. By the way, my name is Misbah Hawk, and on this show, I like to talk about training the strength and conditioning of skills so we can learn new things faster. So we're starting off by saying that Duolingo is going to be AI first. Now, when you say that, because there is general AI anxiety across the whole world, you are basically putting everybody's guard up when you officially make an announcement like that, right? This is the tone with a lot of these emails that are going out from CEOs, right? Which is, look, everyone else is using AI, the cat's out of the bag. We have to catch up. We're not just going to use this for a little bit of productivity here and there. I want everybody that works here to take AI seriously. And if you don't, that's the part where people are scared, right? There's this tone in a lot of these messages that are like, if you don't, in a nice way, here's what you can expect. Now, this line where he says, betting on mobile made all the difference. We're making a similar call now, and this time the platform shift is AI. Okay, now this next part is where I think it begins to really kind of ruffle some feathers, which is AI isn't just a productivity boost. It helps us get closer to our mission. Now, when you say that, it almost sounds kind of grandiose to begin with, right? And historically, when corporations lead with something like that, there is usually some bad news coming right after that. And in this case, in this paragraph, we can see how that's true, right? You're basically tying the mission to getting more content out so that more people can know about Duolingo. And you're framing it, of course, within the language of your culture and company so that it is a little easier to swallow. But next, what really, I think, made people mad in this paragraph is the fact that you're saying that the existing teams that are in charge of that stuff or people that work in that department, you're basically saying, hey, we're not doing good enough. But instead of basically saying, we're going to use these tools to help speed things up, to help, build out more robust systems, right? Instead of saying that, what people hear here is that, look, AI is already helping to replace me in what I'm doing. Their guard is up because you're really kind of coming at it in a combative way. And the part that makes people even more mad is that you're dressing it up in this mission language, right? Which is annoying when it's not really meant to be that way. Okay, now this next paragraph gets even worse. So you have AI also helps us build features like video call that were impossible to build before. For the first time ever, teaching as well as the best human tutors is within our reach. So when you hear that as humans, you're like, okay, well, that doesn't sound like good news. Why are you telling me like this is good news? And that's where I think it really begins to now raise the temper a little bit. If you weren't pissed at that last paragraph, this one is going to make you go, okay, so what you're saying is you want the human tutors to be basically replaced with AI versions. And you're saying that, hey, they can do just as great of a job with this part as humans are, which is another slap in the face after you have just, said that to basically your entire marketing and media department. So I need to acknowledge that so far in this email, we have basically slap in the faces, one direction, two direction. And okay, so the next paragraph is diving a little deeper into what being AI first means. And instead of using this paragraph to finally address that, look, being AI first does not mean that we are not human first, and really kind of addressing some of these concerns that you've flared up so far, you're basically telling the readers of this and your entire workforce that not only is this technology going to cause job insecurity, but at the same time, things are going to be tough. Okay. And I'm preparing you for how tough things are going to be. And you're going to need to work harder than you've worked before. If you thought that was hard, well, you haven't seen it coming, because AI is going to make things even harder. And so, okay, now this tonality is very similar to the tone that I think was received a little bit better in the Fiverr CEO letter, right? Of how easy tasks no longer exist, and what used to be hard tasks will now be medium, and et cetera, right? At least there was some depth in thinking and explanation there, where it gave someone a model of what things could look like, versus here there is none of that, right? Okay, now this next paragraph, we'll be rolling out a few constructive constraints to help guide this shift. We'll gradually stop using contractors to do work that AI can handle. Again, you led with one, even though you mentioned contractors, right? You probably thought, oh, the people who are full-time, they're not going to be concerned. It's just the contractors, right? But what everybody is hearing when you lead with that is, okay, this is what we thought it means. You're basically giving us a warning that, hey, if you get cut, don't be surprised. Now, the next bullet, AI use will be part of what we look for in hiring. The third bullet is AI use will be part of what we evaluate in performance reviews. Okay, that seems pretty simple, but at the same time, what that's doing is it's locking in that you have to learn it. If you don't learn it, you are going to be screwed, because we're going to find grounds for why, you don't belong here, and, you're not doing well enough. We now have a category for being able to enforce that, right? And it's going to be interesting to see how these performance reviews are developed. And this is not an abnormal thing, right? This is going to be happening across corporations everywhere. But again, this is your third bullet, and you still have not said something that would make me, as an employee or a future employee, feel a little more secure, right? You're still kind of flaring up the insecurity. Fourth bullet, headcount will only be given if a team cannot automate more of their work. Okay, so this one makes you go, okay, what exactly does that mean? And basically how you can receive that is, look, if you are not using AI, you're not automating more stuff, you are not efficient, right? We will have grounds to basically go, hey, what's going on? Why aren't you moving as quick? And then what that threatens is obviously job security, right? Why can't you do this with less people? Or if you need more support and resources on your team, you're likely not going to be getting that, right? Because the first question will be, okay, well, why can't you do this with an agent or with an AI tool first? And then the last bullet, most functions will have specific initiatives to fundamentally change how they work. And so again, in those 5 bullets, there was nothing that is really focused on helping the human. Every single bullet was basically, a threat veiled as improvement. Okay, now this next paragraph is where we finally get what we've been waiting for. All of this said, Duolingo will remain a company that cares deeply about its employees. That part is bolded, right? Okay, why didn't you lead with that? Maybe if you started with that, we would be a little bit more receptive to what you're saying. But no, this is all the way at the bottom of the email. You spent 4 paragraphs and 5 bullets basically saying, hey, step your game up, or else I don't know what's going to happen, right? And then you basically give this, empty kind of like, oh yeah, Duolingo will remain a company that cares deeply about its humans. So this isn't about replacing duos with AI. It's about removing bottlenecks so we can do more with the outstanding duos we already have. We want you to focus on creative work and real problems, not repetitive tasks. And we're going to support you with more training, mentorship, and tooling for AI in your function. Okay, so that part is kind of understandable, right? You don't want to waste resources on, busy work. You want people to focus on, more meaningful, real problems, right? What I find kind of wild about this last paragraph is how it goes, but I'm confident this will be a great step for Duolingo. And of course, it's going to be great for Duolingo, but you've spent the whole email making the workers and humans and duos feel separate from this entity that is Duolingo. But even when you do acknowledge that this will be great for the duos, it doesn't sound compelling, right? So he says, it will help us better deliver on our mission. And for duos, it means staying ahead of the curve in using this technology to get things done. But again, there's no appreciation for the humans. There's no empowerment for we're all doing this together. It almost feels like there has been this separation, right? This separation between, okay, we're leadership, then there's AI, and then there's you workers. And I feel like the companies that have successfully navigated this change are ones that are able to actually really hammer and lead with, hey, this is not replacing you humans. We couldn't do this without you. Instead, the focus a lot of the time is on how inefficient things are already and how welcomed this technology is, which it very well is. It's a matter of time where we all have to begin using it to catch up. But I think the failure on a lot of CEOs' parts are there's supposed to be a filter on what information gets out, how things are said, because the way that you say them can actually cause panic, not just within your company, but in markets, right? Many of these emails have been written in a way where, look, people know it's going to get leaked, it's going to go out. And so, this was posted by Duolingo on their LinkedIn, similar to how Fiverr CEO, after he sent out that letter, before it got leaked, he actually decided, hey, look, I know it's going to get leaked. I'm going to actually publish it here as well, because I think it's important for everybody to read. That framing did a lot, right? And so I think there was maybe some sentiment here of like, oh, we're going to sound like we're leaders in this space by being like, we're AI first. But I think they completely missed the mark on addressing the actual human impacts that might happen with this and how, hey, we're here to support you through that. That part was literally 2 lines that sounded very corporate-y, and the rest of it, again, sounded like just threats to your job security. Now, the backlash that followed all of this was so intense that basically Duolingo, took off their socials. They've made it not visible. And every post that they were posting was getting AI criticism, right? It was not like they could just ignore it and it would blow over. It was something that became really prominent, to the point where the CEO of Duolingo said that he did not expect the blowback that it got, right? And so, number one, if you are writing an email like this, even if it's internally, you should write it with something that is going to be ready to be leaked, right? Ready to be shared with people. And I do not think this was ready for that. I think this sounded like a conversation maybe between the C-suite executives around how, hey, this is awesome, we're going to replace a bunch of people. But to everyone else, this sounded like not good. This did not sound as empowering as maybe it was meant to be. Now, let me explain what stands out to me the most from this backlash. It is the power that people have when they come together, right? Specifically with certain products that are more consumer focused. In the B2B world, for example, it is pretty cheered on to some extent that you are using AI, because guess what? It's helping us make more money. You help other people make more money. Hey, we're all making more money, right? And we're doing it faster. So there is this common sentiment in the B2B world to be ahead of the game, right? To be incorporating this stuff. And it's a little bit more normal to have the tone that this email was in. It's kind of more normal to speak that way, right? But as soon as I think you venture into B2C territory, this is which, let's acknowledge that Duolingo is, right? Duolingo is mainly a B2C service. You now have this world where, especially in the software world, $10, $12 a month is a lot, right? It's considered to be high for maybe a premium tier of an app that you're going to pay for. And so all of a sudden, if you have made everyday consumers really mad with what you're about to do, they do have the power to band together and boycott you, right? And not use your stuff. And that can have very real effects to your company, right? And so I think what it's showing here is oh, okay, if you are a B2C brand, you cannot lead with we're AI first, we love AI, we're going to replace all our humans with AI. All consumers will hear and be reminded of when you keep drilling AI down their throats is the fact that, oh, I'm going to be replaced by this technology. Look how this is replacing all these things here. Wow, how much time before it gets to me? People have enormous empathy for this massive job loss that's about to happen. We don't want to hear the leaders of these companies actually say that, because what do we know? People copy what you're going to say, right? So if you're somebody who is justifying this use and you have a lot of weight in your industry and, in the business world, there's literally 100 other corporations that are ready to cite you and copy exactly what you're saying and how you are handling AI. And so I think this was a huge lesson in how to communicate this stuff first and foremost. How could you miss the mark on something like this where you have such a huge chance to win your current employees, right? And win their trust, faith, and commitment, and also of future people that might want to come work for you. And then, of course, your customers and future customers. So I feel like this was a complete miss. Maybe AI was used to write this, and that's why. But at the same time, I feel like it revealed a lot around how the majority of people are really thinking about AI, because it can be very easy to get locked into like, we all are using AI, isn't this great? When in fact, it's really a smaller portion of people than you might imagine. The majority of people are actually pretty nervous about it and are going to be affected by it in some way. And the more companies that begin to use it as a threat like this to basically control what you do and your effort and your commitment, it's not a good look long term for the culture, because you're basically using fear to keep people there, right? And guess what? Nobody's going to ask for raises and things like that while there's all this flux going on. So it just feels like a power move on behalf of these CEOs when they could be using it as a way to empower people. What this situation has forced us all to consider and think about is what happens when there are way more AI-powered, AI-enabled businesses that are trying to basically push AI on you and on their employees. And there are more people who have been impacted and affected by AI in a negative way, right? Where they've lost their job, they've been replaced, they got fired, the performance review thing, in whatever way AI negatively affects you. If there are more people in that category, you have less disposable income, right? Less predictability on people buying your apps and supporting your stuff. Now, what I think will also happen is, aside from sales being threatened and, maybe bad PR being a deterrent, there's only one other thing that seems to bring companies to the table and consider, hey, what's best for the humans that work for us? And I think that is talent, right? So when you have retention being affected, where there's no incentive for people to want to come work for you because, hey, you might cut them in 6 months because there's a new AI tool that's out, that becomes problematic for a lot of these bigger corporations, that AI can just do everything for you and you no longer need humans, right? And so it's kind of revealing, how do people act? And yeah, it might be hard, but here are the specific ways that we're helping you and how we feel about this, right? Instead, what's happening is your employees are finding out how you feel about this by the tone that you're sending, which is like, hey, we're scared, right? We're scared that every other company is using AI now. We have to step up our game. Like, you need to wake up and work harder, right? And people will remember that, okay? Especially in a couple years when the dust settles and you have a normalization of this stuff. I think the companies that will really win a lot of the talent are the ones that are prioritizing. Yes, they're using AI too, but they are prioritizing the human incentives and benefits and how they're actually trying to make your life a little better. That is a message that I have not seen pushed as hard, but I guarantee you that it's coming. There will be more CEOs that take notice as to what happened with this and hopefully begin to change their tone. And hopefully it's real too, and it's not just something that's a positioning thing that they're saying. I hope this was helpful understanding this crazy seismic shift that it feels like has happened, which is a very early thing for what could happen in other industries and for other companies who deploy this kind of AI first thinking. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. Drop a comment if you enjoyed this, and make sure to subscribe wherever you're at. I appreciate you hanging out, and I will see you on the next one.